Evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, June 15th, 2022 at 6 p.m. It's a regular meeting of the Pacific Grove City Council. And I'll ask our city clerk, Sandra Kendall, to please call roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Peak,
Here.
Council members Emilio,
Here.
Coletti,
Here.
Paduri.
Here.
Absent from the meeting today, Mayor Pro Tem Adams and Council members Smith and Tomlinson.
Thank you. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we move to or go to the approval of the agenda. I am recommending we postpone item 12B, safe parking. That's the author of that item is Mayor Pro Tem McAdams. We'll postpone that item to our next regularly scheduled meeting on July 6th. And also, we have a very unusual occurrence tonight. We have 3 council members missing. And we have a couple of important ballot measures on the agenda. So I'm asking for my colleagues for their thoughts. We could postpone those 2 items also to July 6th, or we could start the conversation tonight and continue that to July 6th. So a couple of options. Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. Since this is, like you say, a very unusual situation where we've got 3 council members not in chambers, and I'm sure they're going to want to weigh in on these 2 important ballot measures. So I would move that we postpone or table these 2 items, items 12C and 12D, until a date certain, which would be our next meeting, July 6th. And I don't see any reason to proceed without having all 7 of us here in chambers. Thank you.
Councilmember Emilio.
I'm okay with that.
I'm looking for a second.
Oh, I'll second that.
Councilmember Paduri.
Yes, I'm good with that too. So let's move it to the July 6th meeting.
All right, just to repeat, the motion also included 12B. Is that correct? So 12B, C, and D.
Happy to amend. I didn't say that, but yes.
Okay, and the second. All right,
Yes.
may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Council members Emilio,
Aye.
Coletti,
Aye.
and Paduri.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0-3 with Mayor Pro Tem Adams and Council members Smith and Tomlinson absent.
Thank you. We had a report, or I'm giving you a report on a closed session. It was at the end of our regular meeting on June 1st. It was conference with labor negotiators, Councilmember Smith, Coletti, and myself regarding the city attorney position. The negotiators brought a report. It was discussed and no reportable action was taken. Next, I'll turn to our city manager. Do you have any staff reports?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only staff announcement I have is that city manager offsite office hours are going to be convened on Tuesday, the 21st. I believe that's the date. Let me just check my calendar. Yes, the 21st from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in front of the Giles building in the former, now empty Poppy Hall Parklet. Again, it's from 9 to noon. It's an opportunity for the public to come by with any questions, concerns, comments for the city, and happy to entertain anyone who drops by. Thank you.
Any council member announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to general public comment. If you have comment, please come to the podium. Not seeing anyone in person wishing to speak. Do we have anybody in the virtual audience
I
that
do.
would like to provide general public comment?
Yes, sir. I do have a hand raised. Vicky Pierce.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. And the issue I want to talk about tonight is urgent. As you know, the federal GSA, General Services Administration, has sold the former NOAA property on Lighthouse. It closed escrow on June 6th and title was transferred to new owners. The quitclaim deed was filed and recorded with the County of Monterey on the same date. As you're also aware, the federal consistency staff of the Coastal Commission found GSA's marketing to potential buyers to be insufficient regarding both the environmental and cultural sensitivities of the site. The buyers were also likely left in the dark about the limited and very specific allowed uses of the property laid out in the city's own local coastal program. All this was documented by Coastal Commission staff in their April 5th letter to GSA. But the city is now left responsible to protect the property from any uninformed actions by the new buyers. Does the city have any way to contact them? The senior planner says that even the quitclaim document, once available, won't have contact information. The new owners have already visited the site and were observed working with a hoe on the unpaved natural part of the property, a known archaeological site. The tribal chairwoman of the Ohlone Costanoan Esselen Nation has asked the city to ensure that no further disturbance occurs. This is also nesting season for the western bluebirds, who after almost a century of absence from Pacific Grove, made a first nest on this very property 10 years ago and are now reestablished in our city. Thus, the matter is urgent. I ask the city to make every effort to obtain contact information and to contact the new owners as soon as possible in order to protect our treasured coastal resources and help the new owners to be good stewards of the land. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Ciani.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate Vicky Pierce's comment about the NOAA property. It is a big concern. And I also wanted to point out that, it is, as well as an archaeological site, it is ESHA, it's environmentally sensitive sand dune habitat area. And any work that's done in that natural area should be for the purpose of habitat restoration or enhancement, according to our LCP. So it's really vitally important that the city find out how to contact the owners and get this information to them. The GSA's marketing was very much not in accord with what they had agreed to with the Coastal Commission. But we cannot count on the Coastal Commission to do anything at this point because they are so understaffed and underfunded. So I do hope that the city will take on this really important responsibility of helping the new owners be good stewards of that property. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment, Mr. Mayor.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. I'll be pulling item 8C, that's the memorial service. And let's hear that under new business 13A. Any other items to be pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public wishing to pull an item?
No online hands, Mr. Mayor.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the amended consent agenda?
So moved.
So seconded.
And a vote, please.
Councilmember Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Councilmember Baduri.
Aye.
Motion carries 403. Mayor Pro Tem McAdams and Council Members Smith and Tomlinson absent.
Summarizing what we just approved, we approved minutes of city council from June 1st and June 8th. We also held a second reading and adopted an ordinance regarding the parking of vehicles in our new electric charging parking spaces. We've held a second reading of an ordinance to amend the salary classification schedule for administrative technician. And we've received reports from the Finance Administrative Services Director, the check register report, core revenue status, both for May. We've received a report from the city manager on local emergency actions, and we've approved an amendment to an agreement for a public records management system not to exceed $38,900 from our police administrative services manager. And we've received minutes from the diversity, equity, and diversity, inclusion, and equity meeting minutes in May. All right, that brings us to the first item on a public hearing. It's 11A. It's the second reading of an ordinance to adopt next year's budget and amend this year's budget. Mr. Harvey or Ms. Hannah? Oh, I see we've got Ms. Hannah. Welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, and members of the public. I just have a very brief presentation for you this evening. This is the second reading of the ordinance to approve the fiscal year 2023 budget, as well as amend the fiscal year 21-22 operating and capital improvement budget. Just as a quick recap, we had the first reading of the ordinance on June 1st. That first reading was continued to June 8th. Staff was directed to provide some additional information on general fund services and supplies and details, and that's included within the agenda packet. A subcommittee was also formed. At that meeting, council directed staff to reduce general fund expenditures by $200,000. And also the council and the council subcommittee provided recommendations on the allocation of just over $1 million in the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Just from a very high level, from the general fund perspective, the city is still anticipated to end the fiscal year 22-23 with just over $10 million fund balance, which is $16,000 above our reserve policy limits. And just to share with you, including the agenda packet, there is a list of deferred maintenance projects and recommended projects that have been incorporated into the fiscal year 2022-23 budget, which also includes the Recreation Board's park inventory, a purple pipe project, some funds to partially support a skate park, and $360,000 for a David Avenue sidewalk project. And with that, I conclude my presentation.
Do we have any public comment? In person or virtual?
I see no hands raised online.
Well, I'll start off council comments. Thank you very much, Ms. Hannah, for making these changes, or at least beginning to make the changes. I checked at noon. I didn't see a fully updated budget. I saw your, I don't know, not sure what to call it, but the pages that explained what changes were made on June 15th. But you're going to roll that into a full budget document. When do you anticipate that will be available online?
I anticipate that should be available possibly by the end of this week, the first part of next week. One of our challenges is that it affects some of the text and tables within the document. We did update some of the sections. I'm not sure if that was before noon or not, but we did list the pages that were updated. Part of the challenges we're prepping for our auditors to come down next week, and we just didn't have the opportunity with some of the items that we needed to upload for them. So we are thinking by Friday or the first part of next week.
All right, thank you. Any other council comments? Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Tori, do we have, just following up on what the mayor was saying, not so much in the budget document, but in the ordinance that has been revised, is that correct?
That is correct. The ordinance is updated as well as the fund balances in the ordinance to reflect the changes that council has requested in relation to the reductions in expenditures, as well as the use of the ARPA funds.
Okay. Thank you. One quick question, maybe for Dan Go, if he's available. Is he on?
Mr. Go is on scheduled vacation. Ms. Hallaby is with us this evening, I
Oh,
believe.
okay, sure. Well, yeah, either Miss Hallaby or Tori. It's relating to the $35,000 in the forestry or in public works fund for forestry and other supplies. There's $35,000 allocated to purchase trees for city properties per BNRC recommendation. Now, is that $35,000 strictly for trees alone? I mean, actually the purchase of trees? Do we have an answer for that?
Councilmember Coletti, I'm happy to chime in. That $35,000 would be towards purchasing trees and any other materials necessary, like if we need to adjust a tree well or anything like that. So it would be to replace existing or to install new trees in public facilities.
But it's not labor, right? It's actually
No.
for
That's
purchasing
correct.
trees. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Tori, for great job. And we've already discussed all these items in a prior council meeting and appreciate the work you do in the budget. I know Council Member Paduri has a hand up, but I'm willing to make a motion.
Please,
You want to
go ahead and make a
Okay.
motion.
Oh, go ahead and make a motion then. Hold the second reading of an ordinance adopting the fiscal 22-23 operating capital improvement budget and amending the fiscal year 21-22 operating capital improvement budget.
Do I hear a second? Councilmember Paduri?
You're on mute, Councilmember Baduri.
Mr. Pedori, you are on mute.
Thank you. I said that I second that, and I have a question for Ms. Hannah. And the question is, with this, what we have done here, does this wrap up our ARPA requirement? Number one, do we have to report anything back to say we have allocated the money? And the other question I had is, and I may be missing this, but is the money already there with us, or are we expected to receive it in fiscal year 22-23?
Councilmember Pedori, through the mayor, the funds are anticipated to be provided to us in July, or the first part of next fiscal year. And in relation to I'm sorry, what your other question was?
My other question was, since we
Reporting.
have, allocated, is there any reporting or additional steps to be taken to complete this process?
Oh, not necessarily to receive the funds. We are required to report on a regular basis on what we have earmarked ARPA funds for, as well as our expenditures. We filed our first report at the conclusion of the third quarter, which was March, for what was budgeted and the expenditures to date. So we do report regularly on those funds.
Okay, so July 1st is when it'll kick in.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
May we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Baduri.
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti.
Aye.
Motion carries 403. Mayor Pro Tem McAdams, Councilmember Smith and Tomlinson absent.
Next item is 12A, contract with Harris and Associates. Mr. Keel, is he with us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Keel should be present virtually. If he is not, I can deliver the report. Mr. Keel, are you present?
He's over in the attendees, so I'm going to promote him over. There we go.
Okay, thank you, and good evening, Mayor and City Council. The item before you tonight is staff is requesting the City Council to approve an agreement for not to exceed $135,000 in fiscal year 22-23 for professional contract planning services with Harris and Associates. In 2021, the city entered into a contract with Harris to fill a void within the planning department for a senior planner position. Joe Cedar has filled that seat very successfully and has assisted with staff liaison to the Planning Commission, assisted city staff with the day-to-day functions with planning. The city still is currently going through a recruitment for the senior planner position. It has not been filled yet. So staff is requesting a new agreement not to exceed of $135,000 with Harris and Associates for Joe Cedar to continue starting July 1st and keep the continuity with the planning department. And that concludes my presentation. I can answer questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
We have one hand virtually, Mr. Mayor. Lisa Gianni.
Welcome.
Thank you. I certainly support continuing or extending the contract for a senior planner, but I'm puzzled. In the last 3 weeks, the city has finally, but suddenly, returned to monthly meetings for HRC and ARB. That's a welcome and long needed change, but there was no explanation of why there's suddenly adequate staff time to allow for a monthly meeting schedule for these two commissions after keeping them waiting so long. The timing is puzzling in light of the departure of the CDD director, who was also a working planner. To be clear, I'm not complaining, but it's especially perplexing in light of the agenda report for this item, which acknowledges Joe Cedar's exemplary performance as a contract planner in the senior planner position and staff liaison to the Planning Commission. And yet the scope of work indicates his hours will be 3 days a week, which is cut back from the current 4 days. His phone answering message says he works Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8 to 5. The agenda report doesn't mention his hours being cut. I would appreciate an explanation of how staff hours can be cut when more staff liaison time is being taken on at HRC and ARB, which is work that we've been told for the last year could not be done due to staffing shortages. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
Council discussion? Councilmember Coletti?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first, I want to also echo that Joe Sador's been doing a great job as the liaison to the Planning Commission. I've seen that myself. Just to be clear, so Mr. Sador's new contract will be only until the time that a new senior planner is hired. Is that correct, Mr. Harvey?
Councilmember Coletti, through the mayor, no. We are requesting council to allow us to continue Mr. Sador with this contract until such time that the city does not need his services any longer, or until we need to come back to you if we should and request additional funding. We are in the final stages of trying to complete 2 recruitments. As council knows, you don't know with certainty until all your checks are complete. And so it could be that we fill or don't fill the open recruitments. And so Mr. Sador has provided exemplary service, and he gives us that business continuity and backstop in the event that, well, regardless, I mean, even if new people come on, we want him to be able to share knowledge and to allow for a smooth transition. We don't want to impact service levels in that department. So, if things go well, and we're able to successfully place both a senior planner and a director, then the blue sky scenario would be we would reduce Mr. Sador's hours gradually. But again, I really want to see how the processes go, and if we are able to successfully place those people. And if we do need to come back to the council because of unforeseen events and additional needs, we will certainly do that. Thank you.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense to me. So just trying to nail down the details because it's not exactly clear, at least not to me. So this contract for $135,000, this is for the entire fiscal year, the next fiscal year, 22-23. Will someone mention something about his work schedule? Will he still be working 4 days a week, or is it just going to be 3 days a week?
Councilmember Coletti, through the mayor. No, we have long known, Harris has made it clear to us that while he is currently 4 days a week through June 30th, starting July 1, he has other commitments, professional commitments. And so the maximum he can work going forward is 3 days a week. Considering the recruitments that we're doing, we think that that should work with the department. And we've advised Mr. Sador and Harris that we believe that at least at the start, we're going to definitely need him 3 days a week. However, if that should change, we will come back and advise council up or down. Thank you.
Okay, but he's basically being paid by the hour. So we're allocating $135,000 for next fiscal year. And as long as he's anticipated to work 3 days a week, and he'll be billing us kind of at an hourly rate. Is that it?
That's correct. And along those lines, if I may, if there are times when he does not need to be here 3 days a week for whatever reason, we won't just have him here for the sake of having him here, obviously.
Yeah, well, I'll say it again. I think he's been doing a great job. I just wanted to be I wanted to clear up a little confusion on my part. I think it was mentioned, Ms. Gianni mentioned it about going to rearranging the meeting schedule for boards, committees, and commissions. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Harvey, you mentioned or had an announcement at the DEI where all of our BCCs are going to be going to a hybrid format. Is that right?
Councilmember Coletti, through the mayor, yes, we would like to get there. We first need to ensure all these staff liaisons are trained, because it is more than just simply starting a Zoom meeting. Ms. Candell is sitting here at what we call the bridge, and you have to understand how to operate that, because there are cameras and microphones in this room, and it's a bit more sophisticated than just, convening a Zoom meeting. So I've told staff we're going to start this very soon. The litmus test is if they can successfully train me. I'm the liaison for 2 boards. I'm certain I can be trained, and then we can get everybody else. And, the hope is that by August, everybody's comfortable and confident, and we can successfully do that. And so that's what we're trying to do. Thank you.
That's super. That's a great update. I think Planning Commission is certainly interested in meeting. In fact, they gave direction to bring this to council and ask. So I think it's timely, and I'm looking forward to that discussion. So those are all my comments and questions.
I'll echo complimentary remarks about Joe Sedora. I've found in my interactions and listening to him to be very professional. I may have a motion to approve. Councilmember Emilio.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve an agreement not to exceed 135,000 in fiscal year 22-23 for professional contract planner services with Harris and Associates Incorporated.
I'll second.
A vote, please.
Councilmember Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember Baduri.
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Motion carries 403. Mayor Pro Tem McAdams, Councilmember Smith and Tomlinson absent.
The next item is the Uvalde Memorial Service. Councilmember Emilio.
I could, the report's there to receive the report. Basically, I do have some comments after I hear my fellow colleagues if they have anything to comment on, but it's an interfaith memorial service honoring 19 children and 2 teachers who lost their lives in Uvalde, Texas school shooting. We held at Lovers Park Point, that Saturday, this Saturday from 10 to 11. Should be done by about 10:45. The brief ceremony will include remarks from local community members, including some interfaith members. A facility use permit 3046 was issued by the Recreation, allowing us to use park space for the memorial event. The size and scale of staff support does not trigger the parameters set forth in Council Policy 900-1, special events. Specifically, the event does not preclude others from using the park and will not have significant impact on substantial numbers of residents and businesses. Although the event will require staff support, it's ineligible. Event support will entail the setup breakdown of 38 chairs, which myself and I believe the chamber will be helping out, setting up the chairs. It's anticipated that a maximum of 1 hour of staff time will be required to perform the event setup and breakdown activities. The event support will harness the 2 public works staff members already scheduled to work Saturday, June 18th. Then the financial impact is minimal. 2 public works staff members with a total of 1 hour facility and ceremony setup and breakdown equating to approximately $207.79. These staff members are already scheduled to work Saturday, June 18th, performing regular weekend duties tasks the Public Works Department has. And that's my report. I do have some comments if I will later after I hear comments from everybody else.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Yes, Your Honor. Inga Lawrenson.
Welcome.
Thank you. I am just rather amazed at this whole process. From when it was first announced by a council member that he was doing this, and apparently he directed staff. I didn't really realize one council member could do that with no council go-ahead, and put flyers and articles in the paper, publicity, without any approval from council. How is these memorials, can anyone just come and say, oh, I'm doing it and I direct public staff to do set up in this, and oh, it's minimal because, hey, they don't need to water that tree because they can set up my chairs and take them down. Just because staff is already working, they have their scheduled duties. This whole process has been incredibly false. It's just not going through. And how was this particular event with all the mass shootings that have happened? Why in the world wasn't the top grocery store in Buffalo, the first one, the top priority? I mean, I understand the heartbreaking thing of kids, but these mass shootings are just continue to happen. We've had just a rash of them, 15 of them since then. And why was who can pick and choose? Who can decide? What is the process? And who's paying for it too? Because are the funds, who paid for the permit? You know, I mean, when you reserve a space in the park for something, everybody else pays for it to get their permit. But the permit was issued supposedly to city council, but council had not approved it. This whole process is just, it's absolutely flawed. And I'm just wondering how this and what is council policy on these memorials? I mean, I understand that Joe's at every single one of them, but you know, for Memorial Day and the veterans, I mean, that's a slightly different thing. And I'm just not understanding this. And some of the other flyers have said, oh, sponsored by Paul Mortuary or this. I would like this clarified for me of what is really going on with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other hands raised.
Councilmember comments? Well, I pulled it. So despite good intentions and the fact that we did ignore the municipal code last year, we now must follow the law and municipal code. As was pointed out, council did not sanction this event. And it's not a special event. It is a private event. And I asked Councilmember Emilio to do the right thing and pay the permit fees and pay city staff costs just like everyone else. Council members don't have special privileges to city facilities and staff. So I'm looking to you to set an example of high ethics in this regard. And Mr. Harvey, you still have time to correct this permit. It's a private event. Please reissue the permit and collect the proper fees. As you know, city manager's office is not authorized to give out, to waive fees or to issue, to direct city staff to work for a council member. Again, this was not sanctioned by council. Let's use this as a teaching moment to remind staff to abide by the city code and not provide special treatment for anyone, including council members. Thank you for listening. Any other comments? Councilmember Pedori.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My understanding is that we have such memorial events in the past that have never gone through this process. So I'm just trying to understand where the actual error is, because per policy, there is no stipulation. And I'm just trying to see what is the best way to move forward here, because I'm quite sure it's the same case with Councilmember Emilio too, is if we had a policy in place, potentially we could address this, but I don't know how past events of this nature actually went through and why this is being scrutinized. Those are my comments.
Well, I'll have a shot at responding. As I mentioned, we had 2 memorial events last year, and I participated in them, and no one questioned them. It's sort of like, you know, running a couple of stop signs and no one saying anything and nothing bad happened. Well, we just can't keep doing that. For example, take a look at Article 21 of our charter, interference with or by the city manager. Neither the council nor any member thereof shall give orders to any of the subordinates of the city manager, either publicly or privately. And if you take a look at our city code and the adoption of our master fee schedule, it doesn't allow for the city manager or staff to just waive fees for a council member. This is a private event and permit was issued, but it should have been issued with the payment of fees. And that's, to me, that's what it boils down to. We're using city facilities and city staff, and it was not sanctioned by council. So payments need to be made.
And can I follow up on that?
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to know how this is classified as a private event. What makes it a private event versus a public event?
Well, a public event is sanctioned by city council.
And so in the past, when this occurred, since it was not sanctioned by council, so the past were also mistakes then? Is that?
That is correct. That is correct. Procedure not followed.
Okay, and I would say that based on that note, and I would also see what Councilmember Emilio has to say, but I was not aware of this, frankly, and I thought like this was customary to actually, this is a service honoring some mass killings that have happened, and I think it's an event to remember, and I think it's not an event to scrutinize a particular process or procedure. So while I understand that this is certainly something that we may have missed as a council or council member or a council as a whole, I think we can rectify this in the future. I don't think we need to, again, let Councilmember Emilio pay fees for this. That's taking it a little bit too much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just note that at this point, it is a private event and the fees should be paid. Councilmember Coletti and then Councilmember Emilio.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I think that was very well said. It's clearly not a city-sponsored use. Council did not authorize any funds or the waiving of fees for this. And it kind of interferes with two of our charter articles, Article 43 and Article 21. So I think it's pretty easy. I think, and it's well known in the community. If you want to rent a city facility, you have to pay for it. I've rented the city facilities. I rented this little house down there in Jewel Park. I've always paid for it. So no one is beyond having to pay a fee for the use of a city asset. And who pays it? I don't really care, but it's being presented according to the flyer by the Pacific Grove Chamber of Council or Chamber of Commerce and a council member. So however they want to collect the fees, it's not, that's not for us to decide. I just think what we're trying to say is if you want to use a city facility, you have to pay the fee. And it's just cut and dry. I think everyone in town knows that. So we're not special. Thank you.
Councilmember Emilio.
Yeah, I'll try to say this without getting choked up. I can't believe that you and Councilman Coletti put this on the agenda or pulled the agenda item. My intention was similar to the other memorials that have been done. Everything from the 13 Afghanistan lives that were blown up, U.S. soldiers, the Vets Day, the COVID relief when we reached 300 people that have died. I did a COVID relief thing. I was going to read Councilman Coletti's email to everybody, but I'm going to hold on that. And to come here on D-Day, this day, to suddenly tell me to step forward and pay for all the fees. Well, let me explain something to you and to Councilman Coletti. Why choose this memorial event to honor 19 students massacred along with 2 teachers in Uvalde, Texas for a 45-minute interfaith service this Saturday, similar to what we've done before. The mic, the sound system is borrowed from Mike Epson, who was from the Walker Remembrance. Flyers were done by the chamber. Interfaith service was done again by the chamber and myself, making contact with people. This isn't a pet parade, which blocks many streets and lighthouse, and city pays major dollars for this. This is to honor 19 students and teachers killed in Uvalde, Texas. I was in New York at the time when this happened, and I made contact with the chamber and said, I'd like to do another memorial. I think we have to honor these 19 students and teachers killed. And the question I have is, do we check every single event in the city, such as group picnics or picture taking at Lover's Point or whatever it may be? The list can go on with each event at Lover's Point. This is a 45-minute event. The Assiniboine Trail for the Walk of Remembrance was held on the steps of Pacific Groves Museum. It was wonderful. And Councilman Paduri did a wonderful job reading the apology. There was 300 people. The streets were blocked. And 300 people walked down the street, down to Silmar. And I don't know if a permit was put, but I don't, personally, I didn't care. I thought it was fantastic. The other thing I have to say is I already talked about the three other memorials we did, but you spoke at the memorials, Mayor Peak. Many of the 19 students killed by an AR-15 were not identifiable. They were only identifiable by their clothes or the shoes because an AR-15 blew off their faces. And the parents were able to do that. And why not have some honor in celebration of this? Not celebration, but a memorial. Uvalde has 19,100 students, citizens. We have 16,100. We have 15,800 in PG. The posters that were put up was by me. I put those out on my own time. The chamber did the posters. I just felt like something in my heart that we had to do something. We discuss all these items: city budget, pet parade, special events, cannabis, the list goes on. This is something which we should do, or I should do in the chamber. I think the comments made is shameful and disrespectful to the 19 students and 2 teachers massacred in Uvalde, Texas. This memorial will happen on Lover's Point at 10:45 this Saturday. I am paying for, there's a bagpipe person, I'm paying out of my pocket for that. And that was $100. And I did the same thing with the trumpet that played at the US soldiers killed in Afghanistan. So if you want to demand that I pay for everything, fine. If you're requesting me to pay for everything, I'll pay for every penny out of my own pocket to take care of these things. But right now, this is what it is. And that's all I have to say right now. I had some other things to say, but I'll hold. No more.
Unless there's further, Mayor Pro Tem McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a Santa event every year. And when I started that about 3 years ago, I was specifically told and when I was discussing the event that I cannot use any staff time and that it would be a rental, which is fine. I mean, that was the reason of my conversation with our city manager is how do I go about having an event, being on city council? What is the proper process and procedure? And so for the last 3 years, I rent Jewel Park, and I partner with the chamber and they pay for the wheelie mobile. I do all of the advertising on my own and have the event. And so I'm very grateful that this council, with the exception of the mayor and council member Emilio, I mean, we did pass the resolution in support of gun reform and gun safety. And I do appreciate that. And I appreciate the event, but for me, it's not if you support the event or not support the event. For me, it's we need to be consistent. And it's not fair as a council member that I'm told, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that, but another council member can, and repeatedly, and nothing is said or done. So I think for me, and something that I asked earlier this week is if staff is working on revising our events policy. We've had a lot of discussion about the pet parade and sort of last minute events. And it seems that Councilmember Emilio and the chamber are doing these memorial events. And so I think that we need to have, staff look at our events policy and make some modifications, because if as council members, we are allowed to utilize staff time in advertising the city manager's report, I don't have to rent Jewel Park, et cetera. I don't know, maybe we're allowed 1 event a year or 2 events a year. I think there's some FPPC issues, but I definitely think that treatment needs to be fair and consistent. And I understand that there are these very unfortunate events that happen in our world. And yes, we do need to, the city should have a memorial, but why aren't we also having a memorial for, the 13 residents that were murdered in a grocery store? I mean, there's mass shootings every day. So I think that we need to be careful with this. And just, I know for me, I would appreciate if the policy has changed and council members can utilize staff time or don't have to pay for things, then I want to know. And I think that all 7 of us need to know, and that it needs to be consistent. So this has nothing to do with, having the event or not going or liking the event or not. I think it's more about being fair and treating all of the council members the same. So
Right. This is a report, so there's no action to be taken. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Thank you for the public, for staff and my colleagues for being here tonight. Everyone have a good evening. Meeting adjourned.